how many Stigs are there? It's a question I've been asking myself for a while now. We all know the Stig has a multitude of cousins scattered throughout Top Gear's lifespan, but the rabbit hole goes deeper than that. From his red and blue nephews on the BBC show Getaway Car to surprise cameos on Google Maps Street View, the Stig's family tree is bigger and stranger than you might think. The original Stig, the one dressed in black, made his debut in 2002 alongside the reboot of Top Gear. Jeremy Clarkson and Andy Willman, yes, that Mr. Willman, wanted a professional racing driver as part of the show's cast, but ran into problems finding one who could actually speak on camera. Clarkson's solution? Make him silent, mysterious, and permanently hidden behind a visor. Willman gave it the green light, and the Stig was born. But not exactly. It turns out, according to an interview in 2006 with Perry McCarthy, that the producers had actually wanted the anonymous driver to be called the Gimp, an obvious reference to gimp suits used within the world of BDSM. Perry vetoed the idea, stating, "I don't want to be forever remembered as the Gimp." After his objection, the team eventually settled on the Stig, a name Clarkson and Willman had carried with them since their school days at Repton. There, every new boy was called a Stig, usually as a dig at someone thought to be from a poorer background or someone who just wore scruffy clothes. The nickname itself traced back to the children's book Stig of the Dump, about a cave boy who lived apart from society. And so in Top Gear's premiere, the Stig was officially unveiled to the world. His anonymity quickly became central to the character. Most of the Top Gear crew had no idea who was in the suit, and the public certainly didn't either. Perry McCarthy later explained how far the team went to keep the secret. He would put on the helmet before even passing through BBC's security gates, then change into his overalls in a small room behind the gatehouse before heading into the studio. Backstage, he kept his words to a minimum and even put on an accent that some mistook for French. Hiding his identity while coaching celebrities for star in a reasonably priced car proved even trickier. McCarthy admitted he'd revealed himself only to Ross Kemp and David Soul, who already knew him and promised not to tell. With other guests, if they asked whether he was a specific driver, he'd simply reply, "How did you know?" Though the most common guess was Michael Schumacher. The secrecy went so far that one camera assistant recalled seeing the Stig eat his lunch in the back of an ambulance, just to avoid being spotted. However, McCarthy's Black Stig would not last long. He appeared on the screen for just 2 full seasons before being killed off. The reasons for his exit vary. Some say it was amicable, but according to McCarthy himself, it stemmed from a lawsuit in which he damaged someone's car. The BBC refused to defend him because of his anonymity, and combined with his growing fatigue with the role and his desire to return to the Grand Prix Masters Series, the decision was made not to renew his contract. McCarthy's exit was marked in true Top Gear style, with a stunt. In the Series 3 premiere, the Black Stig met his end in the memorable Jaguar vs Jet race. The sequence was shot on an aircraft carrier and resulted in the Stig launching the Jaguar and himself off the edge of the boat, leaving viewers to wonder if he'd survive. But Jeremy spent no time replacing him. After a quick obituary, the new Stig was introduced. He was sleeker, cleaner, and noticeably whiter than his counterpart. This version of the Stig quickly became the one most people think of today, the White Stig. Unlike Perry McCarthy's Black Stig, this incarnation would go on to define the role, lasting for years and becoming a genuine pop culture icon. Not to mention, this is when the Top Gear producers began to kick things into overdrive, introducing spin-off Stig-themed relatives and cousins to keep the show fresh and entertaining. But we'll talk about them later. Following his introduction, the White Stig also became more integral to the show. The character's role expanded from power lap times and reasonably priced car training to include appearances in other show segments, such as taking part in the White Van Man Challenge, racing across London using public transport, and jumping a snowmobile off a ski jump in Norway. This version of the Stig lasted for 7 years, with little to no controversy. His identity remained a closely guarded secret, something that only grew more important as Top Gear's popularity skyrocketed. But that's where things began to unravel. In 2009, tabloids began to use the Stig's hidden identity to sell more papers. News of the World claimed they'd uncovered the truth, describing him as a married man in his 30s, living in a £300,000 home and driving a £15,000 car. That same month, an art gallery owner reported that the Stig had revealed his identity to him and his son after contacting them under the guise of a BBC executive to commission a series of signed, limited edition Stig prints. The gallery owner even went a step further, alleging that the Stig was none other than Phil Collins. That bizarre claim snowballed when a builder working on Collins's home claimed he'd seen the Stig suit and gloves hanging inside. All of this made for great tabloid fodder, but for the BBC it was a headache. In response, the Top Gear website leaned into the absurdity, jokingly revealing that the Stig was in fact Barack Obama. In June of that year, the BBC tried to seize back control of the narrative with a reveal of their own. Ahead of the Series 13 premiere, Jeremy Clarkson teased that the Stig had finally grown tired of the speculation surrounding him. When the episode aired, the Stig appeared driving a Ferrari FXX to a blisteringly fast lap time before calmly walking into the studio. As the audience chanted for him to unmask, he lifted off the helmet to reveal none other than 7-time Formula One world champion Michael Schumacher. The moment was played completely straight, even down to Schumacher adopting the Stig's trademark oddball personality traits during the interview. But the gag didn't last long. A later segment showed this quote-unquote Stig driving the show's reasonably priced car with suspiciously terrible skill, crashing into equipment and eventually getting lost altogether. A clear signal that the Schumacher reveal was more stunt than truth. And off camera, the BBC confirmed exactly that. It was clear that Phil Collins was growing restless in his role as the Stig. He was frustrated that his anonymity made it harder for him to profit financially from Top Gear's success, unlike the show's on-screen presenters. Tensions came to head in 2010 when Collins attempted to publish his autobiography, sparking an intense legal battle with the BBC. Publishing the book would have officially revealed him as the Stig, directly violating his confidentiality agreements. The dispute went all the way to the High Court, where the judge ruled in favour of Collins and his publisher HarperCollins. The court refused to grant an injunction to block the release, and on the 16th of September 2010, his autobiography, The Man in the White Suit, was officially published. As a result, the BBC cut all ties with him, marking the end of this version of the Stig. James May actually went on a radio show during this time, mentioning that he would be dealt with in a similar way to Black Stig's exit. A video clip about Top Gear's so-called Stig farm was also uploaded to the official website. It showed, in typical Top Gear fashion, how Stigs were supposedly bred, trained and tested, with the joke being that only a select few ever had the driving talent to make it. The clip you're watching now is literally the only one I could find. I looked back through old news articles, blog posts, and even tried several links on the Wayback Machine, but because the video wasn't being hosted on the Top Gear website directly and instead was being loaded through Ruffle, I couldn't access it. So take this with a pinch of salt, but by using this shot where they all run to the feeding trough and cross-referencing it with any screenshots and stills I found on other websites, I counted 14 different Stigs. This includes the final red one that you see for about 2 frames. I'll add that number to the running total for now, and we can review the tally again at the end of the video. Thankfully, that's about it for the Stig farm and any related media for the Top Gear tour, so we can move on to the USA road trip special. This would be the final goodbye of Collins's iteration of the Stig, with Clarkson, Hammond and May branding him as a traitor, and during the episode, in a sort of drive-by shooting challenge, the trio fired at cardboard cutouts of him.
He looks like Don Johnson out of Miami Vice. He does, actually.
5 days after the USA road trip special, Top Gear released the Middle East special, with James, Jeremy and Hammond reenacting the journey of the wise men to Bethlehem. The episode ended when they were greeted with none other than a baby Stig. A month later, for the premiere of Series 16, the presenters explained that Stigs grow very quickly, and thus baby Stig was already fully grown. This would be the third and final iteration of the Stig we all know and love. So obviously I'll only count baby Stig and Stig 3 as one person. That pretty much sums up the 3 main Stigs that took part on the show for over 20 years. We all know that the final Stig was portrayed by Phil Keane due to Jeremy Clarkson revealing his identity in a Q&A panel in 2024. That means we can get on to the fun bit now, the cousins. As you probably know, a variety of themed Stigs have appeared on the show over the years. These are often explained as being cousins of the main Stig, for example his American cousin nicknamed Big Stig. You can probably tell why. I have a list of them in front of me, so I'll just go through them one by one and add them to the tally and briefly brush over what makes them unique if it isn't obvious already. The first cousin to make an appearance was actually Big Stig, so we'll move on to the Stig's African cousin, who appeared in the Botswana special. He was introduced like this.
Some say he's seen the Lion King 1,780 times, and that his second best friend is a Cape Buffalo. All we know is he's not the Stig, but he is the Stig's African cousin. He's protecting the important bits.
It wouldn't be until nearly a year later until another cousin got its chance in the limelight, Rig Stig. Rig Stig was introduced driving a lorry, sporting a suntanned right sleeve and glove in reference to his job, and my lord, power sliding one is no joke. Next we got Stig's communist cousin, a joke because this Stig sported an entirely red outfit and was actually introduced during the Vietnam special. The original broadcast didn't actually include this version, and for some reason he only made it to the DVD release. Continuing on with the theme of coloured Stigs, we got Janet Stig Porter in Series 14. If you couldn't guess already based on the colour, this is the Stig's vegetarian cousin, or eco-friendly Stig. He also sports a solar-powered helmet. To Yorkshire Stig is Stig's Yorkshire cousin. He was featured in Top Gear's DVD special, The Worst Car in the History of the World. To Stig had a flat cap and 2 whippets to really give him that Yorkshire blend. The next three cousins are all based on an individual nationality, more specifically the German, Italian and Chinese versions of the Stig. The Stig's German cousin had no different features apart from sporting a mullet at the back of his helmet. The Italian cousin, also known as Bunga Bunga Stig, was the charmer out of the three and was introduced in a suit followed by 3 glamorous women. And finally, the Stig's Chinese cousin was introduced by kicking through a door. Appropriately, he was nicknamed Attack Stig and spent most of his screen time doing kung fu, and eventually, after doing his timed laps, he kicked James in the nuts.
In the plums!
The Stig's first teenage cousin was introduced in Series 21. He sported headphones, had a low waistline so you could see his Calvin Klein pants, and spent most of the time looking at his phone. He also appeared for an ad for the game Race the Stig, which is still available on YouTube. Unfortunately, the same can't be said about the actual game. Next up, and shown in the first episode of Series 22, was Stig's Australian cousin. He wore the standard Stig uniform with a few minor differences. His feet were bare with flip-flops, the uniform was dusty, and he had a large gentleman's sausage. Leisure Stig is a bit of a weird one. Formerly known as the Stig's leisure activity cousin, he looks identical to the regular Stig except much slower. He is also used specifically for testing caravans at Top Gear's secret leisure facility. Leisure Stig was the last cousin introduced as part of Top Gear when it was presented by Jeremy, James and Richard. There were no Stigs introduced during the Chris Evans era, no surprise there really, and the next 5 were added under Matt, Chris, Rory and Sabine. The Stig's 3 teenage cousins sported the same appearance as the previous teenage cousin, each with smartphones and their own headphones of different colours. They drove 3 microcars in a race around the Top Gear track, with 2 teenage Stigs appearing again later in Series 25. I'll count each teenage Stig here as an additional one because they all appear together as part of this new era of Top Gear, so that's 3 added to the total, but we can just assume that 2 of them return for this second appearance, so we won't be counting them twice. Next up, we have the Stig's Emirati cousin. He wore a gutra and notably had a flashy diamond watch adorning his wrist. Other than that, he looked like a standard Stig, and he was introduced as Matt LeBlanc's driver through downtown Dubai. If you like him hairy, then Stigfoot's got you covered. He's the next Stig offshoot that was introduced in Series 25 of Top Gear. During the episode, Matt and Chris set off on a hunt for Bigfoot with increasingly more extreme off-road toys. They may not have discovered Bigfoot, but they did find an appropriately named Stig because of all the hair jutting out of his suit. The Stig's Japanese cousin is next. He wasn't officially named and instead took on the moniker Ninja Stig, but considering he was introduced in Japan, I'm going to use them interchangeably. Instead of a white racing suit, he wore a black gi and helmet, and of course had a katana as well. Love him or hate him, Ninja Stig definitely had the best effects out of the bunch. And finally, for this era, we got Business Stig. Suspenders, briefcase and paper tucked under one arm. Oh, and don't forget the tie. So after Series 26, in which we got Business Stig, the show was reformatted and another era of Top Gear was over. Chris Harris stayed on, but the rest of the presenters were replaced with Freddie Flintoff and Paddy McGuinness. Only one themed Stig was made during their time on the show, and it wasn't a cousin, it was Stig's dad. This will likely be the last ever Stig, if not for the foreseeable future, as Top Gear as a series was sadly put on hold after Freddie's accident. Don't worry though, because there's still plenty of Stigs to cover. This rabbit hole goes a whole lot deeper than you think. Lego Stig. There's actually two versions of him, one on YouTube right now. The video was published from the official Top Gear account 13 years ago, and it was used to promote a limited edition Lego Stig keychain. If you haven't seen it already, you should definitely check out the video. It's a real creative bit of stop motion. The second Lego Stig is actually in Legoland Windsor Resort, immortalised as part of the Miniland exhibit. Now, I have no idea if the models you see on screen right now are still there, because I could only find a few newspaper articles about this, and it's been a long while since I've gone myself. Emergency Stig is next. He was actually introduced in a proper Top Gear episode, one of my favourites actually. It's the one where the trio build their own ambulances. And I don't care what you say, I know he was introduced as the regular Stig, but come on, okay? He's got his own emergency outfit on, he drove in the modified P45, I am adding him to the total. Female Stig, I know you've all been waiting for this one. She appeared very briefly for 2 scenes in Series 10, Episode 10 of Top Gear when the gang visited Spain. Female Stig was never formally introduced and only ever appeared as a bikini-clad woman wearing a Stig helmet, and was always in the background of scenes where the Stig was relaxing at the Spanish resort. Great, okay, we're moving through them now. The Getaway Car was another series produced by the BBC. It was essentially a driving themed game show and was hosted by Dermot O'Leary. That's not important though. What is important is the fact that in the final challenge of each episode, the contestants would have to compete against the Stig. So not only was the Stig ported to a different TV show, but 2 new characters were introduced, Blue Stig and Red Stig. Not really much to say about them, to be honest. They were just brought on when needed in certain challenges during the show. Then we had Virtual Stig, otherwise known as the Stig's digital cousin. Yes, he was actually officially named this, listen to it here.
Some say he's the Stig, but he's not. He's the Stig's digital cousin.
The Stig's digital cousin was added in Forza, which let you get pieces of his iconic outfit as accessories, and also set up challenges where you could directly race against him in-game. And finally, just to make sure that everything is possibly covered and we get a complete list of every individual Stig family member, we need to talk about the Top Gear international spin-offs. There were adaptations for Top Gear in different countries, for example. Australia, France, Finland, Korea, Russia, China, and the US had their very own versions of the series, and as such would feature their own Stig version. However, to my knowledge, none of these quote-unquote international Stigs actually have any differentiating features from the regular Stig, so I don't really think it's fair to add these to the total, as they are essentially just fulfilling the role of British Stig. That being said, we still have 2 more Stigs to add to the total despite this. Both the American and Australian Top Gear adaptation series introduced 1 Stig cousin each. For Top Gear USA, it was the Blackwood Stig wearing dusty white overalls with torn off sleeves. And for Australia, it was the Stig's Kiwi cousin, the Stag, referencing New Zealand English's centralised short I sound. Well, all that was a mouthful, but at least we figured out together that there are 46 different Stigs in total. If I've missed any, please let me know in the comments below, and if you like long-winded investigative videos like these, be sure to subscribe.